Easter is a time for us to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And so it brings many of us together really to celebrate something we can't really understand. We don't know what the resurrection really is. I know there are theologians and great minds in the world who try to explain exactly what happened. I don't think they can. The best we can say is we know elements of the resurrection. We know what happened, kind of, but we can't really fully understand it. We know that Jesus was seen by the apostles, and yet he was not a ghost. We know that he ate and drank with them and taught them, and yet he was not exactly the same as he was before his death, because he had some signs that would be regularly attributed to ghosts. He could walk through walls, and yet he had a body. He was alive, and yet he had the signs of being killed. To this day, I would venture to say that we do not really understand the resurrection. We know that it happened, and yet we can't fully explain what Jesus became after the resurrection. And the reason for that, I believe, is that we have no experience of what it means to be and to exist after the resurrection. The apostles didn't expect it, and it took them a long time to make sense of what happened to Jesus through the resurrection. The only thing they could do is rejoice. It was a victory. It was a conquering of death and sin. And it was a message of hope in a visible way. And so, the resurrection of Jesus, which we celebrate today, is a mystery of our faith. And I don't think we will truly experience it and understand it until such a time when we will rise from the dead, according to the promise of God. The question that I would like to pose to us today is, do we believe in the resurrection? That is the only appropriate question for us. Do we believe in the resurrection? And what we believe is clearly displayed in how we live. I think there are many people today, unfortunately, who accept a form of Christianity that doesn't really show signs of their belief in the resurrection. The tendency is to accept Jesus as someone who once lived, who was a good and holy man, who taught good and holy things, and who showed us a path to God. All of that is true, but it's not enough. To accept Jesus just as a teacher is not enough, though he was a teacher. To accept Jesus just as a healer is not enough, though he was also a healer. To accept Jesus as the one who points the way to us is not enough, though he was the one who pointed the way. So what is it that we believe about Jesus? How do we show our belief in the resurrection? What does the resurrection mean? It means that he is alive. He is alive. We can talk to him and he can hear us. We can have a relationship with him and we can experience him in our lives. And so Christianity, with the acceptance of the resurrection, has to go beyond just following the path of Jesus or following the values that Jesus displayed or telling stories about what Jesus once did. Ultimately, it's much simpler than that. The message, the life of a Christian who accepts the resurrection is the life of the one who prays to Jesus with faith, and with belief that Jesus can hear me. I think especially about children. When we present the faith to children, to the little ones, the most powerful thing we can do is teach them how to pray. No amount of stories and beautiful recounting of events from the Gospels can replace the resurrection experience. To tell the little ones, Jesus can hear you. He can see you. You can share yourself with him. You can tell him, and he will respond. In other words, we are called to have a real and personal relationship with Jesus. Why? Because of the resurrection. Because he is alive. And that's what sets him apart from all the other good teachers and healers of the past. The Bible is not just a self-help book or a manual on how we can arrange our life to reach some kind of self-fulfillment. No, Christianity is much more pure and simple than that. It is a belief in a God who is alive and who wants to be in a relationship with me. Only then, when I experience the risen Lord here and now, today, and in my daily life, will I begin to experience the joy that comes from being a Christian. Let's be honest. Most people don't like going to church. I called a gentleman yesterday. He's selling a 1997 Harley, the Evolution engine with the carbureted setup still. They're hard to find. He's in Niagara Falls. I called him up and I said, I'm going to be at my parents' tomorrow on Sunday afternoon. Can I come and take a look? And he said, well, tomorrow I'm going to visit my mother and she's going to take me to church. So I'm going to be busy. He said, well, that's good that your mother's taking you to church. How old are you? Because he sounded pretty old. Without the personal encounter with the risen Lord and the belief that we can have a relationship with him, Christianity is too difficult. And we're always going to have to be dragged. And we're always going to have to be convinced that the teachings of Jesus make sense. That's no way to live. And so my invitation to all of us, consider the resurrection of Jesus, the fact that he's alive, the fact that he can see you and hear you, and the fact that he wants to be in a relationship with you. Keep that in mind when you're choosing to pray. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Once we have that personal experience, everything else becomes quite simple, really, and quite beautiful. So on this Easter Sunday, in wishing you God's blessings, I invite you to live the message of the resurrection in your Christian lives. Amen?